Imagine this for a second. You hear the sound of waves, a distant foghorn, and then the sharp crack of a bat. Today we're diving into a fascinating alternate history, a story of what could have been. And we're going to treat this like an iceberg. At the top, you see this amazing, spectacular idea, but the further down we go, the deeper and more surprising the story gets. So let's just get right into it with the one question that sparks this entire alternate timeline. What if one of baseball's most historic franchises, the St. Louis Cardinals, didn't just find a new home, but a new home in the most iconic spot in America? You see, this whole story begins with a vision, not just for a new stadium, but for a ballpark that seems almost impossible, built right out on the water. This was the idea behind Liberty Park. I mean, just try to picture this. You're sitting behind home plate. The park has this classic feel, deep red brick, dark steel trusses, all weathered by the salt air, but the view, wow. The outfield just opens right up to the harbor, and framed perfectly beyond the center field wall is the Statue of Liberty. It's not just a backdrop, it's literally part of the ballpark itself. Okay, so how in the world could this have actually happened? I know, it sounds like pure fantasy, but let's dip just below the surface of the iceberg here. The historical setup for this is actually way more plausible than you might think, and it all comes down to a key decision back in the early 60s.
So in our real history, when the Dodgers and Giants bolted for California back in '57, New York was suddenly left without a National League team. The pressure to fix that was massive. Now in this alternate timeline, instead of creating a brand new expansion team, the league goes for a faster, much more impactful solution. They just move an established franchise. And the team they choose? The St. Louis Cardinals, who arrive in 1962.
And this is the absolute key difference. Instead of getting the brand new, lovable but kind of terrible early Mets, New York gets an instant powerhouse. There are no years and years of rebuilding. A winning culture, established stars, a historic brand, it's all just dropped right into the city, completely changing the baseball landscape overnight. So you've got the team, and you've got this unbelievable stadium. But a ballpark built out on the water isn't just for looks. As we dive deeper into this what if, we start to see how this place would have fundamentally changed the game itself, creating a totally unique on-field identity. Every legendary park needs its signature feature. At Liberty Park, it's the Harbor Homer. Hitting a ball completely out of the stadium and into the bay becomes the ultimate show of power. And it's not just the fans who go wild. The entire harbor celebrates, with fairy horns echoing across the water. It would have been incredible. But the Harbor Homer is just one part of it. Honestly, playing here would be a constant battle with the elements. The wind? Relentless. Unpredictable. It would turn routine fly balls into absolute adventures. The cold coming off the water in October? Just brutal. And that wide-open outfield creates defensive challenges that you just wouldn't see in any other park. And this quote just perfectly captures how the park would amplify the legends of the game. I mean, imagine stepping into the batter's box against Hall of Famer Bob Gibson. The guy was already one of the most intimidating pitchers ever. Now add a freezing gust of wind smacking you in the face right as he's delivering a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. It just makes his dominance feel even more mythical. Of course, a stadium's real identity isn't just about what happens on the field. As we peel back the next layer of this story, we get to the culture that would grow all around it. The actual experience of being a fan of the Liberty Cardinals would be completely unique. Just think about the ritual here. There's not much parking, so the main way you get to the game is by boat. Taking the ferry to the game becomes this core part of being a fan. You'd arrive, you'd walk along this open promenade with ships cruising by, grab a signature snack, and settle in. The journey itself is part of the magic. And of course, you've got to have the food. Every little detail adds to the lore. You've got the Harbor Dog, a classic, the Gibson Steak Sandwich, named after the team's ace. Of course it's aggressive and messy. And for those freezing playoff games in October, hot Liberty apple cider becomes the go-to drink. It all just builds this tangible sense of place. The arrival of a legit, competitive National League team also totally transforms the city's baseball rivalry. Suddenly, the dynamic with the Yankees isn't a big brother, little brother thing like it was with the early Mets. It becomes this symbolic clash of titans, the established, powerful empire of the Yankees versus the new, harbor-based spirit of liberty. And now, we reach the very bottom of our iceberg, the deep, unseen foundation that changes everything. See, a stadium with such a prominent place in the New York skyline would inevitably have to share in the city's greatest triumphs and its deepest tragedies. Its story takes a profound, unforgettable turn on September 11, 2001.
With its location right there in the harbor, looking directly across at the World Trade Center, Liberty Park was in the immediate impact zone. The sky, the water, the whole atmosphere of that place was just altered in an instant.
In the aftermath, the ballpark completely transformed. It was no longer a place for entertainment. It was covered in dust and debris, and its entire infrastructure took on a new purpose. That same ferry system that brought fans to games became a critical lifeline for evacuating people from Lower Manhattan, basically mirroring the real-life heroic boat lift that happened that day.
So when baseball finally did return to Liberty Park in 2002, the feeling was completely different. It wasn't a celebration, it was about presence. It was about reclaiming a space. The players took the field wearing FDNY and NYPD caps, and they weren't just representing a team anymore, but the resilience of an entire city. And this, right here, this is the entire point of this what if. In this timeline, the Cardinals have the same players, the same championships, the same stats. Nothing on paper actually changes, but their context, their story, their legacy, it's all completely redefined by the city they now call home. In the end, Liberty Park is a story about how sports, culture, and forces far beyond our control all intersect. That wind whipping off the harbor served as this constant reminder to the players, to the fans, and to the city itself, that some things, like nature and history, are impartial. They shape us whether we're ready for it or not.